And footage has emerged of watch thieves targeting undercover police officers in London. The officers were purposefully carrying luxury goods to catch thieves. 4 men were arrested after they tried to steal an expensive watch from one of the officers. 2 have been convicted of robbery.
October 10th, 2024, 6:15 p.m. The sun has just set over Mayfair, London, casting long shadows across one of the most exclusive neighbourhoods on earth. 2 wealthy-looking tourists are strolling casually down the street, their body language relaxed, their guards down. To any observer, they look like the perfect targets. The man is wearing a gleaming $40,000 Rolex Skydweller, its face catching the streetlights. The woman beside him flashes a $70,000 Patek Philippe rose gold timepiece with every gesture. Behind them, a predator stalks. 21-year-old Jakob Harkit has chosen his victims. He is a foot soldier in an international crime network that has terrorized London's elite districts for years. A ghost in the system who strikes and vanishes. But what Harkit does not know is that he is walking into a trap. These are not tourists, they are undercover police officers. The bait in the most audacious sting operation in modern British history. In the next 60 seconds, a botched robbery will unravel a billion-dollar conspiracy stretching from North Africa to the heart of London's financial district. You're about to witness the moment the hunters became the hunted. Before we dive back into that explosive confrontation on the streets of Mayfair, you need to understand exactly what led to this moment. This was not just about 2 low-level criminals trying to snatch some jewelry. This is the story of how London became ground zero for the most sophisticated luxury theft operation the world has ever seen. To truly grasp the stakes, let me paint a picture of modern London that the tourist brochures conveniently leave out. Over the last 7 years, watch thefts in England and Wales have nearly doubled, surging to over 11,000 incidents per year. In London alone, 6,000 watches were stolen last year. That is a staggering statistic, more than 16 thefts every single day. If those numbers are blowing your mind, you are not alone. But the raw data only tells half the story. The true impact is visible in the boardrooms and private jet terminals of the city. International business executives, the kind of people who fly around the world closing million-dollar deals, have quietly started blacklisting London. It is not because of terrorism, and it is not because of economic instability. It is because they are genuinely terrified of having their wrists stripped bare in broad daylight. The method is terrifyingly consistent. Victims are targeted specifically for their high-value timepieces. The criminals use a blend of extreme violence, intimidation, and lightning speed. They strike in seconds, disappear into the chaos of the crowd, and by the time the victim realizes, the weight is gone from their arm. The thieves are ghosts. For a long time, police treated these as isolated, opportunistic muggings, but recent intelligence revealed a disturbing truth. These were not random crimes. They were part of a massive, coordinated engine that required the most elaborate undercover operation in Metropolitan Police history to dismantle. The trail led investigators thousands of miles away to North Africa, specifically Algeria. Detectives uncovered a criminal highway, a sophisticated pipeline running from Algerian cities, through the porous borders of France, and directly into the heart of London's wealthiest districts. These were not desperate junkies looking for quick cash to fix a habit. These were organized, salaried professionals, who studied their craft with the dedication of a diamond cutter. They researched luxury watch models online, memorizing bezel shapes and dial colors. They scouted locations like Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and Soho urban hunting grounds, where wealthy targets casually display accessories worth more than a Ferrari. Detective Sergeant Andy Swindles, who leads the Met's luxury theft unit, described this phenomenon as stealing to order. It is a chilling concept. These criminals were not just grabbing whatever glittered. They were fulfilling specific requests from buyers in the shadowy corners of the global black market. They targeted models with high liquidity and massive resale value. The Richard Mille, the Rolex Daytona, the Patek Philippe Nautilus. These watches are essentially untraceable cryptocurrency on a strap. A single Richard Mille can be worth £300,000. A rare Patek Philippe can fetch £500,000 or more. In one successful afternoon, a skilled thief could steal more than most people earn in a lifetime. But the true danger of this network was not just financial. They were stealing confidence. They were dismantling the reputation of London's most prestigious neighborhoods, making them feel like war zones for the wealthy. By late 2024, the situation had reached a critical breaking point. The Metropolitan Police realized that traditional patrols and CCTV were useless against a phantom enemy. They needed to do something unprecedented. To catch a predator, they had to become the prey. The operation that would change everything began months before that October evening. In the quiet, secure briefing rooms of Scotland Yard, the Metropolitan Police had been running undercover operations in central London for over a year, but this initiative, dubbed Operation Venice, was different. It was personal. Two officers, whose identities remained strictly protected for their safety, were selected for the most dangerous assignment imaginable. They would pose as wealthy tourists, wear genuine luxury watches worth more than most people's houses, and walk through the most dangerous corridors of London's wealth. Think about the psychological weight of that assignment. These officers were essentially painting targets on their own backs. They were making themselves the most attractive robbery victims in the entire city, hoping the criminals would be arrogant enough to take the bait. The male officer strapped on a genuine £40,000 Rolex Sky Dweller. The female officer wore a replica Patek Philippe Rose Gold, but one so masterfully crafted that it would be valued at £70,000 on the street. Together they were walking around with what appeared to be £110,000 worth of hardware on their wrists. But they were not alone. Hidden throughout Mayfair in unmarked vans, behind cafe windows and blending into the pedestrian traffic, were backup officers, surveillance teams and high-definition cameras capturing every angle. This was not just a sting, it was a carefully orchestrated theater piece designed to trap the Rolex Rippers in the act. For 4 agonizing hours, absolutely nothing happened. The officers walked their designated route from Berkeley Square to Hayes Mews over and over again. They had to act natural, laughing and pointing at landmarks, while their adrenaline spiked with every passing scooter or shadowing figure. They made themselves visible, vulnerable, and incredibly attractive to the criminal eye. And then, at 6:15 p.m. the trap snapped shut. Jakob Harkit, 21 years old, had been watching them. He had followed them for several minutes, studying their gait, their distraction and the glint of gold on their wrists. He waited for them to turn onto a quieter street, convinced he had found the perfect mark. He had no idea he was walking into the most sophisticated police trap in British history. The footage of the attack is chaotic and brutal. Harkit approaches from behind, his demeanor shifting from casual observer to aggressor in a split second. Cameras catch his eyes locking onto the female officer's Patek Philippe. Then, he strikes. In one fluid, practiced motion, he grabs her arm and attempts to rip the watch from her wrist. But the script flips instantly. The watch does not pop off. There is a struggle. You can almost hear the moment of sickening realization in Harkit's mind. These victims did not shrink back in fear. They pivoted with the combat readiness of trained officers. Suddenly, the street erupted. Harkit realized he had made a catastrophic mistake and tried to flee, but the net was already closing. This was not 2 tourists chasing a thief. It was a coordinated tactical unit snapping into action. Backup officers converged from multiple directions, cutting off every escape route. The takedown was professional and decisive. Within seconds, Harkit was pinned to the pavement, the replica watch he had managed to grab lying uselessly on the ground nearby. But the real victory was not just catching the man with his hands on the watch. As the officers secured Harkit, their surveillance teams spotted the spotters. 3 other men who had been shadowing the tourists, waiting to intercept any resistance, were now trying to melt away into the evening crowd. The operation had just exposed an entire tactical unit. Mohammed Nos, 34, was arrested immediately, while 2 others, Adel Mohammed and Yanis Amri, managed to slip through the chaos. They were identified, marking the beginning of the end for their London operations. The police had not just stopped a robbery, they had cracked the code of the entire network. The handcuffs on Jakob Harkit and Mohammed Nos were just the beginning. While the physical takedown on the streets of Mayfair was a victory for the officers, courage. The real breakthrough happened in the quiet, sterile labs of digital forensics. Investigators knew they had the foot soldiers, but they needed to map the army. When they cracked open Mohammed Nos's phone, the data painted a chilling picture of professional intent. History logs revealed that just 24 hours before the botched robbery, Nos had not been looking up tourist attractions or restaurants. He had been meticulously researching luxury watch models, specifically Richard Miller timepieces. For those unaware, Richard Mille watches are the apex predators of the luxury market, bulky, distinct, and often valued at over £250,000. This digital footprint was the smoking gun. It proved that this was not a crime of desperation or opportunity, it was a calculated business venture. They were hunting specific assets with the precision of stockbrokers analyzing a market trend. Through international cooperation with French authorities, the Metropolitan Police traced the invisible threads connecting the London suspects to broader criminal networks in Algeria. This was not an isolated cell. It was a franchise. The Rolex Rippers were part of a systematic infiltration of Europe's wealthiest cities. They had studied the legal systems, exploited the lack of real-time data sharing between borders, and used the freedom of movement to turn the continent into their personal shopping mall. Investigators estimated that this specific network was responsible for millions of pounds in thefts, leaving a wake of traumatized victims who were now too terrified to walk the streets of the cities they called home. The finale of this saga played out months later at Southwark Crown Court. The evidence was overwhelming. Jakob Harkit, confronted with the undeniable CCTV footage of him wrestling an undercover audacious officer, pleaded guilty to robbery. He knew the game was up. Mohammed Nos, however, gambled. He claimed he was merely a bystander, a tourist in the wrong place at the wrong time. The jury did not buy it. The digital evidence on his phone destroyed his defense. Recorder Jacques El-Ghazi KC delivered sentences that were meant to resonate far beyond the courtroom. Harkit received 2 years, reduced only for his plea. Nos was handed 3 years. In his closing remarks, the judge cut to the core of the issue, describing the operation as highly organized crime, motivated by greed, not need. While 2 accomplices, Adel Mohammed and Janice Amri, remain at large convicted in absentia. The message was clear: London is fighting back. But as the dust settles, a warning remains. This case exposed the terrifying evolution of modern crime. These networks are using social media to identify targets, encrypted apps to coordinate strikes, and international borders to vanish. The Rolex Ripper case was a battle won, but the war is far from over. Yet, there is a poetic justice in how this chapter ended. Sophisticated criminals, convinced of their own genius, were brought down because they underestimated the one thing they could not steal: the courage of officers willing to become targets to keep their city safe.